Hi, everybody. Welcome to Signals Pod. And this is the show where we're talking all things Sex in the City and everything that Sarah Jessica Parker has made, including her show, Square Pegs. And this was her first show in 1982. And we are talking about episodes 7 and 8 today. So much fun. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Jax is here.
Yay! This is so fun to get to do with you, Rachel. And I'm really excited to dive into these episodes where we get to see a young Sarah Jessica Parker be a writer.
Yeah, I know. That was so fun. It really felt like, okay, Carrie Bradshaw in training, especially this episode 8.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean,
Definitely.
episode 7, I don't think we'll really talk about it that long. It's definitely one of those episodes from the 80s that doesn't hold up. It's pretty cringe. So,
Yeah. And Rachel, I think that we've done a good job of really like analyzing and acknowledging the things that like don't age well, but also the
yeah.
things, that we discussed last time, like, okay, like here's what they were trying to do with that. But yeah, there are just things that are going to be uncomfortable, and acknowledging that, yeah, there definitely was a lot in episode 7 that was going on that I was like, oh, feels very 80s.
Yes. Yeah. It's called Weema We Gate is the name.
Yeah.
And it's Ace reporters Lauren and Patty investigate Weema Wee High's scandal-ridden campaign for a new high school mascot. Class clown Marshall's latest stunt makes him a prime suspect. Yeah, so let's talk about this a little bit because how do you deal with something like that, whether it's a TV show episode or a movie and it's got this sort of dated thing, like I guess, are you able to kind of put it in context, or is there points where it's just too much is too much? And I don't know, like how do you approach when you have something like that?
I think that's a really good question. And I feel like for me, if it's something that is, say, blatant like sexism or something,
Yeah.
I'm able to put it into context, probably also because, like, as a woman, I'm like, oh, okay, like I can be like, it was a different time. Sometimes I have a more difficult time when it's things with like racism or things like that where I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm really allowed to like give it a pass.
Yeah.
I am able to think back, like this is just an example of I think back to when I was in high school, which was not in the 80s, late 90s, 2000s, really.
Right.
And we had our rival school, they were called the Indians, and we had a cheer that was Scalp the Indians. And I never put together, I mean, what is wrong with me? I never put together what we were actually saying. It was just like what we were saying. That was the cheer. And I look back at that and I'm horrified at my own behavior. But I think if I can also look at my own behavior and then look at a show like this and put it in the context of like, this doesn't seem like it was trying to be mean spirited or nasty, but it was
Hmm.
a different time. How do you kind of
Yeah.
do all
You
that?
know, I mean, I grew up in Maryland, so I was there was always sort of the conversation about the Washington Redskins and the whole thing. And what was interesting in that whole debate was that whenever they would poll the tribal area, the Native Americans in the area, they were always in favor of keeping the name, always. And so I know it's that, like, obviously, like it's the people being portrayed that should make the final decision, about something's legacy and something's value. It's really not my place as like a straight white woman to like make the call. But I also try to put in context of the overall piece of work and whether I think it has like enough value. Like, for
Mhm.
example, there's a lot of cringe in Gone with the Wind. It's, it was made in 1939. It's based on this kind of racist book, or a book that has racist moments. Let's put it that way, a very idealized version of the South, and but I think that Gone with the Wind has some just incredible moments of cinematography, of acting, of melodrama, of costuming, of other things, and you feel like Hattie McDaniel's amazing performance to an Oscar for, and like things like that. That I think it's worth it to watch and appreciate the good things, and then I guess take note of the not as good things. But something like Song of the South, I think Disney should just release it because it's not worth it. The movie is boring. The movie has it's trite. It's bad. I mean, the only really good thing about the movie is James Baskett, who won an Oscar, and the some of the animation is fun, but his performance as Uncle Remus is quite charming and nice, but the story is so lame that the movie as a whole is just not worth it. Like it's not good cinema. And so that's kind of how I would look at something like this. Like, yeah, this episode is really cringe, but the show as a whole is worth it.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And also to add on to that, I do feel like this show is very camp. And there's also something about this, like this over the topness, that it's so cringe because of what it's tied to, but a lot of it is just camp, so it feels different too. And I think there's
Yeah.
just so many things that are intersecting together in this episode, but yeah, it was like, oh, well, we would definitely not see that on TV now.
No, thankfully. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing I thought was weird is that were they implying that Lauren has like a big crush on Mr. Donovan?
Rachel, yeah. And I
But
was
then they didn't
confused.
really do anything with that. It was sort of weird.
She was okay, so the first time that she had this little like moment of like titillation, I was like, okay, maybe she's just getting excited about like
Yeah.
being a journalist. But
Right.
then he said something else and she was into it again, and I was like, what? What's going on?
Yeah. I was
Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
weird because they never really like had it as a plot element. It was just kind of like a what? I don't know.
Yeah.
And like evidently Mr. Donovan was he says that he wasn't a hippie, but he was involved in the what does he call it? The sale of oh, did I write it down where he talks about that basically he was selling drugs, like is what he says.
Selling and doing drugs.
Yeah. And so yeah, I mean it was very interesting. I thought that, and it's just all the sort of the commentary about Watergate I thought was really interesting because it wouldn't have been that long, coming back from it, and it would have been under 10 years that they were dealing with that. And so you have I did think it was a little bit funny when they're showing the food from school lunch and it's like never touch the purple stuff, it's instant death.
Oh,
That
their
was
school lunches
funny.
look horrific.
Yeah. I don't think you should ever eat anything that's purple or blue. I have this kind of my friend Abby, I have kind of an ongoing, I don't even know how it got started. It's one of those things where she was like randomly sharing like a bunch of blue food, and it became like an oncoming joke. Like whenever I see blue food, I'm like, hey Abby, it's your favorite. And then she loves blue food. And of course I love that scene in Bridget Jones when she dyes the soup blue.
Oh yeah.
That's my favorite.
Oh my gosh, that's so
and,
funny.
and Darcy's like, is it much underused color? But yeah, that was funny. I mean, when I think about my school lunches, I remember that you could just get French fries.
Oh, sounds
Yeah,
great.
I should do that now, but you could just get French fries because most of the time it was terrible. And a lot of times I would have pizza that I would get.
Were the French fries available every day?
I don't know about every day, but it was frequently. You could
Yes.
get these. And I
Sounds
remember
great.
you could get your full lunch for $1.
That's what ours was too.
Yeah, it was $1. Yeah. And now, I mean, of course, now they've made it like all fancy. And yeah, Michelle Obama. And you gotta pay like $4 for school lunch. I'm like, what?
It was, yeah, ours was $1, or maybe it was $1.25. But then if you were in the economic bracket where you got reduced lunch, it was
Yeah.
like 40 cents, and then people got free lunch.
Yeah, yeah,
I think I got reduced. So I remember being like, it was like 40 cents or something.
yeah. Because we always did hot lunch because one of the weird things about my dad is that he really like would get upset about the fact that like packaging something in a smaller container, it would cost more. So like anything that was for lunch would really bother him to this day still. Like and then he's like I used to joke that I could probably have a easier time getting my dad to give me a car than a juice box. Like juice boxes were offensive to my father.
He's like,
You'd
I'm
probably be
morally
like
against them.
a big fan of the whole Stanley Cup kind of craze
I
because
could, yes.
just like the idea of paying more, and it makes sense. I get it, but like, when you're a kid, you want like the cute little lunch, with all the stuff to trade with your
Lunch
friends and
bowl.
everything. And my dad was actually responsible for getting us our lunch because I mean, for most of my teen years, at least, because my mom had a baby when I was 10 and a baby when I was 16 and a baby when I was 18. And so and she had to have full bed rest for her pregnancies, and obviously the recovery, is going to be an infant to take care of. And so for most of my teen years, it was my dad who was kind of playing mom and dad. And so it was we just were never going to get like the cute little lunch that you want, and so it was just like, I'm just going to buy give me $1.
Hot food.
Yeah. And I think you paid $1.25 if you wanted milk. I think
I love that you could get the upgrade for milk.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure. But I do remember that you could just get French fries. Which
Sounds
is
so
absurd.
good. Gosh, that would have been my lunch every day if we had that.
Yeah, it was frequent.
I'd be like, just give me French fries.
Yeah.
If you got pizza, I like pizza too.
Yeah. So anyway, let us know if you're listening what the current state of school lunches is.
What's happening in school lunches these days?
They looked way better when I went to school with my nieces a long time ago, but I just couldn't believe how expensive they were.
That's crazy. $4? Like,
yeah, what? It was like $4. Like, what?
Come on.
Yeah.
Government should be subsidizing way more.
Well, there's this rocket club, and then they're doing the story on the big hamster story.
This is really funny that they're like not wanting to cover this story. They're wanting like real journalism, so they become investigators. It's really
Can hamsters get the common cold? That was really funny. It was really funny. So then the main, I guess, problematic aspect of this episode is they have their school motto. They're the Weemamees, so the school motto is in Indian. That, whatever, it is what it is. But they're holding auditions for the school mascot, and because the Roger, the guy who was playing the Indian, got expelled for stealing money from the Guatemalan girl.
And didn't even bother to return the costume. So they have to get a smaller costume that is like teeny tiny and will barely fit whoever.
And I guess what makes it particularly cringe is that both of the people running for the Indian mascot are both, white, like non. And so it's just you've got Vinny and and Johnny.
And
Run.
even though Marshall tried to make it seem like Johnny had Native American heritage, it
Yeah.
was bizarre. We're like, no, he doesn't. And he
Yeah.
was like, no, I don't. My grandma's from Poland.
Yeah. From Poland. And now you can get that cool mohawk haircut that you always wanted. And I forget who it was that said that maybe they can now get Marlon Brando to organize a protest.
Oh, yes.
Because that wouldn't have been that far. I forget when Godfather is like 78 or 79, something like that.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and of course he won the Oscar that year and sent the Native American rep.
That was very cool.
For widely criticized at the time, seen as a real, and people didn't like it. But yeah, that's what he did. And so Vinny and Johnny get the whole episode is all about their campaigning. So I think the best way to almost appreciate the episode is just to kind of imagine it wasn't for the Indian mascot.
That's cool.
And it was just something else.
I was actually okay. So even though the dancing was inappropriate, I was able to try and look at the performance as like, okay, just take it out of there. And I will say Vinny was a lot better than Johnny.
Yeah.
I was like, Vinny kind of deserves it.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know what miniseries they were talking. There must have been a Watergate miniseries at the time in like the 80s. But he says that he passes out the teacher passes out the papers about Watergate. Wasn't that a miniseries last year? Before it was a miniseries, it was real life.
It happened.
Yeah. Oh, here's where it was. He says that Mr. Donovan says that he was in sales and commodities.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that was funny. Kind of implying that he did weed at least.
Yeah, for sure. We know he was a hippie.
Yeah.
I'd like to take a second to thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the new book from Harpeth Road Publishing and best-selling author Nancy Nagel, The Law of Attraction. Whitney Winters and her sister-in-law Karina are thrust into the limelight when it's the national news that a number of their former clients have fallen in love after their respective divorces. To keep their jobs, Whitney and Karina must juggle their newfound fame and their clients' misadventures in love while attempting to preserve the law firm's reputation. But their efforts aren't without distractions. Whitney begins to fall for charming artist Matthew McMahon, her complete opposite. Meanwhile, Karina wonders if all the time she's putting into her career is shortchanging her marriage. Will the sisters-in-law get more than they can handle, especially when happily ever afters aren't really in their job descriptions? A swoony romantic jaunt that's as feel-good as your mama's apple pie. If you enjoyed the TV movies based on Nancy's books and are searching for more heartwarming romance, look no further. You can pick up The Law of Attraction today wherever you purchase your books, or use the affiliate link below, or go to harpethroad.com. That's harpethroad.com.
I did think it was like a pretty funny moment when Marshall holds. He's got the V's, the piece that says that I'm not a crook. I'm not a crook. I'm not a crook.
You knew he was so excited about doing that. And it was funny.
Then that's what, of course, Nixon said. There's somebody that is making things harder for Vinny. Doesn't want Vinny to win. I was like, what exactly did she do with those weights? She added more weight, or I don't know what she did, but something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. Were you on to the fact that it was Jennifer?
I was that would have been my guess. I was pretty sure that it was, and I also liked when it said Woodward and Bernstein had to start somewhere. You mean doesn't happen in Robert Redford? And so Patty is that they need to expose Marshall, because I think it's Marshall who's doing this, that to protect the democratic process. And I did think it was a funny scene when they find the shoe imprint in the ground after the weight incident, and then they staged this ridiculously to get the shoe off of, like, I get Marshall's shoe,
It
so they
was
compared
so
the
funny.
two. Yeah.
They were literally like pouring food on him and then just took both his shoes off and ran away with them. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm here for this madcap comedy. It's wild.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Well, and then so they have this, the most cringy part of the whole thing was when they were doing these speeches, and they're both in like Indian garb, and it was pretty cringe. It was pretty bad. But
it
but
felt ick.
yeah. And so then I don't understand why, like, Jennifer thought that like a whoopee cushion, that was going to be the clincher. That was, I mean, I feel like that, like, Vinny would think that was nothing.
It did make me laugh, though. I don't know why I'm into that kind of humor, but a whoopee cushion will always make me laugh.
Yeah. And so Jennifer, she is jealous, and Vinny, he's a pretty he's a pretty, what do you say, he gets won over pretty easily. Vinny gets won over pretty easily. Jennifer doesn't like it.
Yeah, he's like, okay, I'm gonna drop out.
Yeah, he's like, oh, you don't like it?
And they're like, are you conceding? And he's like, oh no, I'm just, how did he say that at the end? Like, it was funny.
Yeah, it was good. And basically, like, if my girl doesn't like it, I don't care. And I think that's actually, like, to a certain extent, obviously you don't want to be completely controlled, but like, if it's something that does not matter to you at all, right, and it matters to your partner, then then they win.
I mean, I think the only reason he did in the first place was because, like, LaDonna signed him up and he was like, yeah, okay, cool, I'll roll with it. But then it's like, Jennifer really hated it.
Yeah. And so then it turns out now Johnny is the new mascot. And then they all apologize to Marshall. And I think it was a mistake. Lauren and Marshall should have been a thing.
Yeah, Lauren,
would have been so good.
You like that teacher? And look at Marshall right in front of you. He's nerdy and cute and funny, and he's your friend, and he's your age.
Right, exactly. And then it ends with a pretty cringe scene of Johnny eating corn and dressing like an Indian.
That was my least favorite, actually.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is the worst episode of the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, there's always, I feel like whenever you review any show, there's always that one episode.
We had that with Sex and the City.
Yeah.
That episode where Samantha was yelling at I think at the trans women in the streets or something. There's always one where you're like, oh, that's really, really bad.
Yeah, that one was bad. And the bisexual episode is bad.
Yes.
That they say, oh, you're lying and everything.
Yep.
And so every show has it, you know. We learn and grow as humans.
Learn and grow. And and I think you're right. Like, separating that from it. I mean, you look at the TV show Friends too. Like, there's so much like fat phobia in Friends, and there's just so many things that we look back and we're like, ick. Yeah. So how do we just be glad that we're evolving?
Yeah. And I think it's important to like process these things. And like I said, in the end, the people that are being portrayed are the ones that should get the final say. Mm-hmm. But rather than, you know, me, like, but that's an important conversation to have. I think it's important. Yeah.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
Episode 8 is called Open 24 Hours. It's the music industry might never be the same when we the music industry might never be the same when Wee Wee's High's career week influences Johnny to start his own rock band with best friend Marshall acting as the manager. This was much better. Much better.
This was so fun.
Yeah.
This was really, really fun.
Yeah.
Like,
I like the idea of open 24 hours as your band name. I think that's really funny.
I like that too. Also, I love that we're seeing 2 episodes in a row of Marshall like being obsessed with like being Johnny's like hype man.
Yeah, that's true. And that I did think it was again another Carrie Bradshaw moment when she says you can never make a living being a writer. Says yes you can. All you have to do is die young and then you'll become famous.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah, pretty
It kind
much.
of defeats the point. Yeah. It was really fun to see her, like, to think of her, this is like the mini Carrie Bradshaw, or like the Carrie Diaries.
Yeah. Yeah. So Principal Dingleman, he's teaching the career class, and it was really random. They had this whole flashback scene from his like high school days when he was big into the band and everything, which I just thought was really random for this like minor character we've seen a couple times to have a whole flashback scene.
Yeah, it was interesting because we don't even see much of, like, besides from our 8 main characters of the kids and then the teachers that pop in as like guest stars.
Yeah.
We don't see that. We don't even really see many other teenagers that they're talking to. So to have this flashback, it did feel kind of funny.
Yeah, because it's not like he's like a Mr. Feeney or something like that. That's like a major character, in Boy Meets World. So that was interesting. I'm like, oh, they're even using sepia tones. Like, we're going back.
You're like, what's happening here?
Yeah, that was really funny.
You're even using sepia. Yeah, it was funny.
So then Muffy, she asked for volunteers to help the nursing home residents, and that that was fun. I mean, because I remember doing quite a bit of volunteer work at nursing homes and things like that in high school. I feel like that's something that they often get. You should want the young people or to help cheer up the older people.
And of course, Muffy would be in charge of
that. Yeah. And so Marshall says that he's Johnny's agent or manager, I guess they call it. And I thought that was again another funny dynamic. That he's trying to get Johnny to get more excited, and Johnny keeps saying like that he has the drummer from the Doors lined up. One thing that I was surprised is I've never seen something from this era that has yoga. I know it's been around for ages, whatever, but I've just never seen it in any media from the late 70s and 80s. I've never seen yoga.
I haven't either. I've seen like aerobics, we've also seen gymnastics. I thought this was interesting. I couldn't figure out, there's something about it too that I couldn't figure out if it was like weird cultural appropriation that I feel weird about. I was like, I'm not sure what's going on with this, because she was wearing I didn't know why she was wearing, I mean, it could have just been a towel on her head, but I was like, what's going on with this?
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I couldn't figure it out.
But I was just surprised because I feel like that didn't really come into vogue until like the late 90s.
Definitely. That's not something you would see at all before that. Yeah, like late 90s, kind of at the earliest, I feel like aerobics was like all the rage.
Yeah.
And they were even dressed like they were doing aerobics, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, but they were doing yoga, and then he tells them about the open 24 hours, and the girls are writing a song, so they're trying to write a song, which was fun.
They're so cute. I just love them as a duo together.
Yeah, I like when Johnny's like, my eyes look upset, don't they? Because he's getting frustrated with Marshall. Oh, that was funny.
And Marshall is being a bit annoying. Like, I get it.
Yeah, he's a lot. He's a micromanager.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because there's certain people that are just designed to kind of to there's certain people that their brain just works being a leader, and there's other people who just doesn't, so you try to get them, and as us leader types are like, come on, do something, why are you just standing there, go, and they're just kind of like, what's wrong with you, why are you, leave me alone, and that can be a huge challenge, speaking from leader president, like that can be, I was it can be hard.
You're like, let's get it going.
Yeah, and just like you just want to kind of get it done. And I remember my mom, because my mom's not the leader type. She's more the supportive type. And I remember her being frustrated sometimes, like, what's that? Oh, I remember her sometimes being frustrated. Like there was this one time when I was supposed to draw this drawing of a geese for a report, and I wanted to just do it, and she like made me like get the ruler out and measure it and make sure it looked, do my best. And so that was always something she was kind of making me like, where I was just like, I just want to get it done. I want to do it,
make it happen.
Just those different personalities can be really interesting. We're trying to get things done, work on projects.
Like, can I just do it? I don't need the ruler.
Yeah. But of course, like it was way better because I took the time. And so, but you have that kind of division between Marshall and Johnny, and Marshall asked Patty to help Johnny with the song, working on the song, and then he makes a deal with at the grocery store, at the deli, that they will sing a song about the deli, which was a funny bit, I thought.
I love the deals, the wheeling and the dealing. Like, how do we make this happen?
Yeah. And Johnny is kind of like your tortured artist sort of a thing, whereas Marshall's just like, oh, we want to take this opportunity, we want to make it happen. He's like, what? I can't sing for deli meat, what? I'm performing for me, not you, and not for chunks of francs.
Deli meat?
And he said, I don't sell out. You're not selling out. You're buying in. And again, that's just sort of the different perspective of like sort of the more like the person who, the more artist perspective, the more like, whereas like the more leadership is like, oh, you got to take every opportunity. You got to, I don't know. I feel like that's true to a lot of like life that way.
It definitely, because, and like, especially, they're very different skill sets of like creating the art and also being, sometimes you have to have both, but it's like creating it and then being able to actually like get it out to people.
Yeah. Well, and I love that scene when they're in the fridge with the, with the meat and everything. It was like right out of Rocky.
Oh yeah.
But, yeah, that was really funny because that would have just happened as well. Like, Rocky wouldn't have been that long ago. And you shouldn't disappoint your public. It's like, okay, fine. So the band plays at the grocery store. It's a big hit. Hit. And the jingle Chunks and Franks was very funny.
It's a classic.
And then the Patty has written the song that's about being tired. I'm tired song, which I connected with very much.
I loved that. Yes.
Yeah. I was like, I need that song because I people ask like, have a picture, a GIF to describe your mood at this moment. And I'm like, it's always the same at any moment. I'm always tired. It's always either the baby that slumps over or the girl who's hanging on to the, to the carousel. Oh my God. One or the other.
I love it's always either the baby that slumps up.
That's my status at all times. I can always sleep.
It's funny because you don't read as tired to me.
That's good.
But I can relate to, I'm lucky. I have no trouble sleeping. Like at any point, at any time, I can lay down and I'll be gone.
Well, that's the thing is then I have insomnia when I actually can't sleep. So it's a situation.
That's not fair. That's not fair to you.
because I have so much to do. I think my brain is just like, woo, it's like there's always.
Rachel, don't lay down.
So I need the I'm tired song.
Yes. Thanks, Patty.
And so then Muffy hires Johnny and the band open 24 hours to play at the nursing home.
Which is very cute.
Yeah.
Oh, question for you. At one point, Marshall had his arm around Muffy, and I was like, it looked like she was like enjoying it. And I couldn't tell if it
that's
was
true.
And I couldn't tell. She also looked like she was kind of turned on by Vinny in the thing before when he was doing his little dance. And I was like, does she have a thing for Marshall, or is she just dealing with being a teenager and hormones are raging?
Yeah.
Or did I misread?
I could see that. I could see almost Muffy being into Johnny more than Marshall. I think she would like that kind of like chill.
Mm-hmm. She needs that.
Yeah.
She needs with her energy.
I think that would be really funny. But yeah, this was a really funny episode. Like all the characters got involved. And so yeah, I liked this one. I enjoyed it.
What do we have? 12 more?
Yeah, we have 12 more.
It'll be interesting to see where this goes. And I can't remember because I know we talked about how the show ended because of like lots of like kind of drama and drugs and things like that. Do you know if they knew that they were ending? Like, did they wrap it up?
I don't know. I don't.
Yeah, I think it's kind of fun that we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we love the drama episode and the Halloween one are probably the two best so far. Would you agree? Yeah,
definitely. Drama really first, funny. Always for me, but the Halloween one was a very close second.
Yeah. Well, let us know if you have seen these episodes. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments or on Twitter. And we did get a comment. I almost forgot on the episode that we just aired, which we're a couple ahead on this recording. But it was interesting about Tracy Nelson, who plays Jennifer. Regina Ross 9635. She says Tracy Nelson is the daughter of Ricky Nelson, granddaughter of Ozzie and Harriet, and niece of Mark Harmon. When I think of watching Square Pegs when it originally came on, I always remember it being the first place I saw Sarah Jessica Parker and Tracy Nelson. So,
oh my gosh, I had no idea about that.
Yeah.
Wow.
There you go.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you for that tidbit.
Yes,
I love
please more
interacting. We always welcome any comments you have.
Yeah, definitely, especially on this because this is just new territory for us.
Yes, we're embarking on. Sarah Jessica Parker has taken us to places that we never thought we'd go.
Yes. So anyway, let us know what you think of the things we talked about, the episodes we talked about, and what you do with sort of outdated content on a show that you're watching or movie. Love to hear your thoughts about that as well. And so, Jax, where can people find you?
Jacqueline Collier on Instagram.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. And you can follow the podcast at City Girls Pod. And then, of course, everywhere at Hallmarkies Podcast, all of our social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. We really, really appreciate that. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate that so much. We also have our Patreon group, which is a great way to support us. And we have the merch store. You can get City Girls Pod merch and some new designs. Yay. And we got some new designs up. So check that out. And thanks so much, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Bye.